As the world population grows and ages, nation demographics have crept into popular attention. These discussions mainly center on birth rates and age. However, gender differences are typically neglected. Hundreds of countries have gender imbalances where one sex outnumbers the other. While males dominate some countries, women outweigh men in others. Several variables cause these variances. War, culture, politics, and genetics contribute to this. Now, before we start today's video, subscribe to our channel and like this video. Here we go. Number 10. 52.57% women in Estonia. In addition to a multitude of public health concerns associated with binge drinking and smoking, Estonia continues to face the impacts of its participation in the Second World War, just like the other Eastern European countries that are included on this list. The typical Estonian man consumes more than 2.5 times as much alcohol as the typical Estonian woman does each year, measuring in at 17.5 liters. Another one of the countries in Europe with one of the worst suicide rates is Estonia, which has a rate of 12.2 per 100,000 inhabitants, with men being more than 5 times more likely to take their own lives than women. Around 11,000 Estonians leave the country every year, either permanently or temporarily, to seek employment and settle in other countries. The majority of these people are guys who are looking for better career possibilities in other countries. Number 9. Portugal has 52.82% women. Since the year 2010, the proportion of women in Portugal's population has climbed to an all-time high, and the country has also made strides toward greater gender equality. Despite these recent gains for women, the economy in Portugal has been struggling in recent years. As a direct consequence of this, many Portuguese men have left the nation in pursuit of employment possibilities that are more favorable. Brazil and other countries in the European Union are by far the most common locations for male Portuguese immigrants to settle in after leaving Portugal. The shorter average lifespan of Portuguese men is one factor that contributes to the greater number of women in the country's population. The average life expectancy of a Portuguese man is 78 years, while the average life expectancy of a Portuguese woman is 84 years. Number 8. 52.83% women in Zimbabwe. In February of 2021, women had 31.9% of the seats in Zimbabwe's parliament. The rate of advancement that a country experiences can seem very different from one country to the next. This positive has a dampening effect because of the disproportionate amount of women in the population, which can generate challenges all on its own. In the year 2020, male mortality was at a rate of 413%, which is quite high when compared to the rate of 138% in the USA. This rate is intended to indicate the probability of a person passing away between the ages of 15 and 60. Due to the fact that Zimbabwe's overall mortality rate has been declining over the course of the past few years, it is quite likely that imbalances, such as the ratio of men to women, will eventually be corrected in the future. Number 7. 52.98% women in Georgia. Georgia is a very small country, having only roughly 3.7 million people in its entire population. There are around 52.98% females among those, with men making up the remaining 47.02%. Georgia, which is one of the world's oldest Christian states, has a long history of defending itself against repeated invasions by dominant neighbors such as Russia and Turkey. This has been the case throughout much of Georgia's history. In addition, the region's economic outlook compels a large number of its male citizens to look for work elsewhere, which contributes to the increased rate of emigration. When all is said and done, mortality is the sole factor that can be held responsible for the demographic imbalance that exists between men and women. Excessive drinking, smoking, and other risk-taking activities are to blame, just like they are in a good number of the other countries on this list. Number 6. 53.07% women in Lithuania. The male population of Lithuania displays the same tendency toward destructive behavior toward oneself as its Baltic neighbors, Latvia. In our country, men have a much higher propensity than women have to be heavy drinkers and smokers. Because smoking is so widespread in this part of the world, more than 1/3 of males in Lithuania smoke cigarettes on a daily basis, and many more do so on an occasional basis. The Lithuanian health authorities have made reducing cigarette consumption one of their primary priorities in order to improve public health. In a manner analogous to that which occurred in Nepal, a significant number of Lithuania's younger, more productive males have migrated away from the country in recent decades in quest of better job prospects in neighboring European countries such as Germany and England. Number 5. Russia has 53.5% women. Similar to its neighbor Ukraine, Russia can also blame the Second World War's terrible effects for some of this gender inequality. The Soviet Union lost an astounding 27 million people throughout the conflict, the greatest of any country. But there are other factors at play in Russia's larger proportion of women. Russian males are substantially more likely than Estonian or Lithuanian men to develop alcoholism. After the Soviet Union fell apart in the early 1990s, this situation only got worse. The long-term impacts of excessive drinking and everyday cigarette use have been felt by a large portion of Russia's male population for the past 30 years or so. Number 4. Latvia has 53.68% women. The tiny European nation of Latvia, which is located on the coast of the Baltic Sea, has the female-to-male ratio that is the second highest of any country on the planet. This discrepancy occurs as a result of a plethora of self-inflicted dangers, the prevalence of which is significantly higher among men in this region of the world. Men in Latvia have a substantially higher incidence of engaging in heavy drinking and smoking. These behaviors are a contributor to a wide variety of health problems, including coronary heart disease and a variety of malignancies. The average life expectancy of a Latvian man is approximately 68 years, while the average life expectancy of a Latvian woman is 78 years. The male population likewise has a far greater suicide rate than the female population does. This is a worrying pattern that can be seen in the majority of countries all over the world. Number 3. Ukraine with 53.71% women. In light of the current situation in Ukraine, in which the conflict is still raging and a growing number of people are losing their lives, the gender disparity that already exists is certain to widen. Despite the dire circumstances that prevail in today's Ukraine, the shortage of male population has been a problem for a very long time, even before the outbreak of the conflict that is currently taking place between Russia and Ukraine. There is widespread agreement among historians that the Second World War had such a devastating effect on the male population of the Ukraine that it has not yet recovered to the levels it had before 1941. If the conflict between Russia and Ukraine does not cease soon, it is highly unlikely that this pattern will change anytime in the near future. Number 2. Belarus has 53.9% women. Belarus, which is still marked by the wounds of its history, has one of the gloomiest narratives in all of Eastern Europe. During World War II, the region that would later become Belarus was completely obliterated as a result of its location on the border of what was previously Nazi Germany. During the battle, more than a quarter of the whole population of Belarus was killed, making it the country with the largest number of casualties per capita. Belarus is not only one of the most impoverished countries in Europe, but also the only remaining genuine dictatorship on the continent. The standard of living is poor and economic opportunities are limited. Because of this, a great number of young men have fled to different regions of Europe. Number 1. Armenia has 54.97% women. Many things happened in 20th century Armenia, a nation thousands of years old. Being under Soviet rule and having neighbors slaughtered in wars did not assist the nation. However, the Armenian genocide during and after the First World War contributed to Armenia's male demographic shortage. Turkey and the Ottoman Empire executed 1.5 million Armenians or forced them to march through the Syrian desert. It was the meticulous planning and execution of the killings that inspired the term genocide. According to many reports, most of the dead were men. Males are also abandoning the US for work due to economic turmoil. There are large Armenian communities worldwide. Russia, France, and the US have large Armenian populations. That's all for today. If you want to watch more cool stuff in future, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and don't forget to share this video. Goodbye.